Welcome back to Beyond the Scripts. I'm your host, Will Tuft with Pioneer RX, and today we have a special guest joining us. This is actually the 2024 WSPA Distinguished Young Pharmacist of the Year, Matt Bender. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Will. I'm really excited to be here and talk through some of the things going on in pharmacy right now.
Yeah, so for anybody that's not familiar, you are a young pharmacist who maybe not everybody has met yet. Tell me a little bit about where you're currently at and how you got there.
Sure. I am a 3-store owner in the Seattle, Washington area. My highest volume store is called Ostrom's Drug and Gift. It's there in Kenmore. We're a couple of cities over from Seattle. My other 2 stores are in the actual city. And I'm a partner of Jeff Harrell's. I was working at Ostrom's Drug right out of college. And after about 4 years or so, I got the opportunity to buy it from the family that owned it previously. And I actually had met Jeff through this podcast. I needed to find a partner, and our old owner saw Jeff talking about what he's doing, working up here in the Pacific Northwest. And through the partnership with Jeff, I was able to get these opportunities for these other 2 stores over here in Seattle.
How cool is that? I didn't realize that's where that connection was made. That's awesome. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your time there at the pharmacy at Ostrom's. Was it during school as well? Was there precepting, or was that just where you landed after school?
I actually interned at a Woodinville pharmacy, which is a recent Pioneer convert. So I'm sure that's exciting for you guys.
Awesome. Welcome.
Yeah. And when I graduated, I ended up at Ostrom's, which was hiring a full-time pharmacist. They were growing, so they wanted somebody who's kind of working on profitability, doing some kind of background projects. And I landed there about 3 months after graduation and kind of had this soft plan of maybe in 10 years, I get a chance to buy the place if everything happened to go well. That 10 years turned into 4 years pretty quick. The old owner's wife retired, and he got really jealous and he wanted to join her. So he sold to me. And then in the process, I needed a certain amount of collateral to secure the loan, which is, how I came across Jeff. But basically came in, helped make the store profitable, and took that leap of faith, and really thankful that I did.
Very cool. Yeah. So you went from, going to school and everything being very hypothetical to everything all of a sudden being extremely actual in a very short time frame. Was that intimidating? Were you ready to jump on that, or were you did you have second thoughts?
Connect 2025 Pharmacy Conference. Get the full Connect experience. Stay with us at the Gaylord Texan. Exclusive discounted rates. Only $254 per night through May 13th. Book now at the Gaylord Texan for Connect 2025.
It was scary at times. I am married, and I had a kid in my first year of pharmacy school, which is a timing I wouldn't recommend to most people, but sometimes life goes that way. And it was busy for sure. I knew that there's some things in business that have nothing to do with what we learned in pharmacy school. I absolutely do not have an MBA. I'll often have students ask me if they'd recommend getting one. I'd say yes, if you're not going to have the same kind of business mentorship that I've been so lucky to have. But, thankfully with our setup here in the Cascadia Pharmacy Group, we have a central office that takes care of a lot of these regulation things, HR, insurance, employee insurance, these types of things that I really didn't go to school for and that I would not do well. So thankfully, the setup we have enables me to spend more time being a pharmacist, being a business manager, making sure we're buying correctly, those sorts of things that I can use my skill set a little bit better for.
Yeah. So before we dive into like those the stores that you're running. Let's talk a little bit about that group that you're a part of, where you've been able to find some support. Because I've been able to visit and work with and meet a lot of the team members there in the Cascadia Pharmacy Group. Super strong group, forward thinking, and really just a great team to be around. So tell me a little bit about A, what that even is, and B, what that involvement looks like for you.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable how lucky I feel to have landed in this situation. I mean, we've got about 20 or so other owners in this group of about 40 stores. With my 3 stores, I'm the day-to-day person. Most of the decisions are mine. Jeff doesn't really force his will on the owners unless we need to. I mean, obviously, he helps negotiate contracts. We buy a lot better. Maybe we'll get a group rate with a vendor. So all sorts of fantastic things that Jeff brings to all of us, but he also lets us as owner operators kind of run our own show. I know my stores. I know my patient population very well. I know what works here. I probably market more being in the city of Seattle than some of the more rural stores in our group do. And they as well are going to know their population and everything that's right there. And, Jeff is smart enough to let some really good people kind of do their thing in their area and put every ounce of sweat, blood, and tears into making that store as good as it's going to be. And we really appreciate that. Within Cascadia Pharmacy Group, I've got, all these other owners who have probably solved most of the problems that I'm facing. We have somebody else who's already taken that head on, so we're not constantly reinventing the wheel. We have some really brilliant innovators, so I can say, hey, this is what's going on, or I'm having an issue trying to get this to click with an employee. Can you help me? And it's just fantastic. And besides the other owners, we got marketing, we got IT. The marketing that a lot of us are doing is small business owners. It's things that we're learning kind of step by step as we go. But, we have an actual fantastic marketer named Julie, and she's out there getting our brand out. She can whip up an image I can share in 5 seconds. So definitely enjoying having her. We have a couple central pharmacists, Crystal and Tara, who are helping take some of these projects off of our team that can be exported to other stores. So just really enjoying this this full unit and not having your small business pharmacist owner doing things that other people can do better, so you can focus on being that face of your pharmacy.
Yeah, I love that, man. Like I said, I've been able to visit with the Cascadia team a handful of times. Actually, attending one of your meetings and doing some training, and it was so great to see that group who's so willing to share ideas and work together. And pharmacies, independent pharmacists have to wear so many different hats. It's really hard to wear all of them really well all of the time. So it seems like having that group has really let you guys kind of utilize your strengths to benefit your own business, but also help grow with your peers. But where you're not the strongest, it's great to be able to have somebody else who can offer their strengths. So, I love the idea of independent pharmacies not being alone.
Yeah, we're trying to. I feel like we have most of the strengths that an independent pharmacy has. We can move quickly. We can decide a project makes sense and just implement it. We don't have to wait for all this corporate structure that lives 3 states over to clear it. So we have all those advantages, but we're protected from some of the dangers of independent pharmacy, like unfortunately not buying very well, or just not having time to follow up on some things like a bad reimbursement with a PBM.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go back in the time machine, back to Ostrom's, where you're right out of school. So what were you seeing there, as a bright-eyed student who, wants to change the landscape of pharmacy in your community? What opportunities did you see? What did you think was essential that was working? From somebody who's just stepping in. You have a unique point of view. To kind of look at all of that through a different set of eyes. So, tell me a little bit about your first impressions, what you wanted to keep, what you wanted to change.
Sure. I came into the store and I was really lucky as a young person to come into this group of people who were not afraid of change. They really installed that in the culture. Our old owner, he actually wasn't a pharmacist. His dad was, but he was a business graduate. His name's Todd, still a mentor to me. And he even had a printout of pharmacies in the area that had closed in the past couple of years, which is maybe a little bit macabre, but it's kind of a sign of change is hard. If we don't make effort to change, we will die. So we'd kind of use that as a team to say, sometimes we got to change these things that have been working all right, but we can make them work better. We had a manager for 40 years, fantastic guy, faced the community. His last day ended up being the first day that somebody died of COVID in town. Just weird coincidence. He retired right as the world was getting ready to change. And so we have another pharmacist, Sharina, who is still our manager. When I'm in that pharmacy, she's my boss. I sign the paycheck, but I'm smart enough to know that she's got the years of experience. She has emotional intelligence, and she's just done such a great job with workflow. And in the past few years, just no longer printing e-scripts. Our inventory has always been perfect. Just making sure during COVID, our drive-through just got backed up in the next week. So we just focused on all sorts of things to make that drive-through experience a little bit more pleasant. We're always looking for ways to invest time now when it might be just a little bit slower to save time down the road. So we just always lived in that mindset. And as a young person coming in, I would have some of these project hours. So maybe I got developed a Tamiflu protocol before COVID took off. So we would help people acquire Tamiflu for themselves and their family during a time of flu illness. We developed a travel clinic so we could help people, go in other countries, acquire some medications. These are some things we can do in Washington State with doctor agreements, collaborative drug therapy agreement. But yeah, just a few examples. There's some other kind of silly things like, it's July and August. We better make sure we have EpiPens because for about 4 years in a row, our wholesaler would run out of EpiPens right when all the parents need them again. So just kind of foreseeing that, making sure we carry our Tamiflu, making sure we're not running out of vaccines, getting ready to, as an owner especially, because now I wouldn't incur any overtime. September to January, we do a lot of vaccines here in Seattle, and I make sure to make myself available, make sure we're getting those flexible staff members to get some extra hours, just really being aware of those times when your store has the opportunity to make more money and making sure you're doing everything you can to meet that demand. These sorts of things have definitely helped us, survive and thrive out here.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned you can do some things there in Washington that maybe other states can't. So you guys have the ability to, you mentioned the Tamiflu, so you guys can you test and treat there, or how does that work?
Yeah, so here in Washington with the collaborative drug therapy agreements, we can do just about anything as long as we have a doctor to sign off. We are working on expanding that. For example, state of Idaho, they can do just about anything without, needing that doctor on the protocol. So Washington State is hoping to move in that direction in the future. We got 50 states and 50 different places, which is always I'm sure that's a challenge for you on this podcast, talking to people who can do all sorts of different things everywhere. But
I can never keep up.
No, I can't either.
So you graduated, in 2017? So definitely, one of the young guns out there. Moving into your first pharmacy opportunity, having that great mentor, having an established pharmacy to grow into and take the reins, especially with a great team behind you who can help keep everything through that transition smoothly. What would ever possess you to jump into two more immediately? No, it just sounds like so much to take on. How did that come about? Was that organic, or did you have a goal early that says, I want to have 5 stores in 5 years? What did that look like?
It really just came down to I was open to it. Things at Ostrom's were working. We had a successful business, and Jeff has, at this time, maybe about 28 stores or so, and generally doing pretty well with them. So it's a little bit less of a leap of faith when you have the evidence that, it's working and we have the people who know that it can work. So Bob Johnson's pharmacy was the second pharmacy. Jeff knew I was open to multi-store ownership. Once again, I thought this would be 5 years. It took about a year. So it was less than 1 year from buying Ostrom's that Bob's happened. The former owner, Mike Donahue, he was already in talks with Jeff to sell it when that retirement day came. Legend in our community. Those up here in Washington State know the story. Unfortunately, he ended up passing away kind of unexpectedly. And so his family continued to sell to Jeff, and it was close enough that I was able to be the local owner operator of that one. And, as a single store owner, you're kind of used to being the pharmacist 4 or 5 days a week. Maybe you slip in an admin day or half an admin day or something like that, whatever you can get away with. I realized quickly that I'm not going to end up being the pharmacist 3 days here and 3 days here. So at my 2 Seattle stores, I definitely act as more of a business admin type of person. I try to ask them, what frustrations are you having with, software or workflow? And it turns out it's a problem that we solved 5 years ago at my other store. So just bringing in that extra experience, showing them how to look at numbers, make sure we're buying right, that sort of thing. But the managers at Bob Johnson Madison Park Pharmacy, they're mostly able to, run things without needing me to come in every day and work that bench. So
yeah. So that's one of the challenges I think so many independents overlook is, creating those standardized systems, and thinking with that multi-location mentality of everything that we do needs to be intentional. It needs to have, an opportunity to measure and to replicate and to, systematically handle those tasks every day. And then even if you're not planning on moving into a multi-location, again, just having that kind of framework, it sounds like that can really help set that business up to where if you have a great team in place, you're able to make sure that you're finding success without being on the bench every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely finding time to meet with my managers at the very least every week. Checking the pulse of the store. Do we need to hire somebody? Is there an employee we need to talk to a little bit more? What's the general morale here, and then seeing what you can do to help that. This technician has reported that they really love to get into vaccine training. Let's get them going immediately. There's some things that my managers might feel like they don't have time to do right now, and then I can at least come in and assess if that's going to be something that I could just take off for them, or what needs to be done, or maybe something that turns out just wasn't that important anyway. But just giving that extra set of eyes, because everybody listening to this knows that sometimes you just cannot get out of that workflow, and you cannot get some things done if you don't really be mindful or get help from somebody else.
Yeah. So a year in, you've got 2 locations under your belt, and you say, wow, this is so easy. I need a third.
Oh, God. This is going to be the worst reviewed podcast. Yeah, this owner came on. He said how easy it was. No. It's draining. It's fun. I'm always going to think about when Todd finally signed that last paperwork to sell me Ostrom's, and just the visible show of emotion to finally have that burden off of his shoulders. He liked what he did, but that definitely hits home for me. There is obviously a lot of burden. We can never truly get away, no matter where we go. And it's hard. Something, you could be minding your own business, and something will come across that your store just got burgled, or you're losing a key employee. It's totally inescapable. There'll be a time that you'd have to go into your store. There's nobody else that you can get to do it, and sorry, you're just gonna have to leave that dinner you planned with your wife. So it's absolutely. I don't want to underplay that. There's a lot of difficulties in this, but
no, yeah, of course. I was definitely tongue in cheek there. So when did the third pharmacy roll in?
The third pharmacy, the first tip I got on it was actually from an old preceptor of mine who said the only pharmacy in the Madison Park neighborhood of Seattle has closed on very short notice, and ended up being on about 2 days' notice that the pharmacy team was let go following a bankruptcy sale.
Oh, wow.
So this area of Seattle, it's a little bit isolated from the rest. It's only really one road out of it, and it's often under construction. So these are people who are kind of, they're not very willing to drive up and into the downtown area. So the story in Washington is the story of the entire country. We lost thousands of pharmacies just since 2023, and this was just another one of them. Within the group, they lost about 30, and opening up a pharmacy for one that just closed, that's an immediate, that might not be a good idea. But, we were able to kind of get some insight and learn that this Madison Park pharmacy was one of the most successful in the company. They're not the reason that the bigger company went out of business. They're definitely one of the gems of it. We also got a tip so the landlord was reaching out to some local pharmacies. So Bev Schaefer at Caterman's reached out to Jeff as well, letting him know that this was an opportunity. So Jeff heard about it independent of me hearing about it. And then as we continue to look at the numbers and kind of see this geographic area, it just made sense. So the old building, the old pharmacy that was there since about 2000 had kind of a more integrative care, more natural products, supplements, high-end products, these sorts of things. And, since this was a place that was doing well before us, we really came in and we just tried to replicate as much as we could.
Yeah, so first off, Beverly Schaefer, shout out, local rock star as well, and super, super nice person. I was lucky enough to go visit her once and had a lot of fun there. So it sounds like this third pharmacy then may have been the most challenging, because even though you're kind of picking up where there was a pharmacy, this is almost like a startup at that point then. So you're trying to reassemble a staff, and it sounds like maybe the store just wasn't a turnkey operation that day, huh?
Right. So this is a new open with this kind of particular neighborhood and with everything else, this kind of particular business model that they had that was thriving. We really aimed to bring back as many people as we could from the old store. So I believe we brought back 8 employees who had worked there before. So we brought back the old pharmacy manager, another pharmacist, and a lead technician. And then the front end side, we got their old district managers in charge of multiple stores, their old manager. We have a beauty expert. So we have like a makeup gondola, which that's an example of something that I'm never going to be able to do with any level of talent. We have a naturopath, with 2 naturopaths, a couple herbalists. So we have some people with a different line of thinking than you have in most pharmacies, and it's been really successful. We've had, we've seen Jeff go on the road and have a slide deck just kind of talking about this model of, hey, let's focus on these high-end supplements. Let's focus on having the experts who are not pharmacists, but they're trained in this area. And, obviously when we need to get the pharmacists involved to talk about drug interactions and that sort of thing, we do. But we just have the people who know what sells and what markets well and what's going to help these people out in this OTC supplement space.
Nice. I love that. Yeah. So concentrating on having experts there in the community, outside of just pharmacists alone is, it's a great idea. It's something that, you kind of imagine with those old pharmacies, that you imagine as like the Andy or not Andy Warhol, but the Norman Rockwell pharmacy paintings.
Yeah.
I guess pharmacies now are more like an Andy Warhol than a Norman Rockwell. But I love that. The makeup counter especially, that's, probably not something that's going to work in every market, but being able to really drill down and see, what would work in that specific market is really interesting.
Yeah. So Ostrom's is a 60-year-old gift shop. We do incredible numbers in November and December, especially. But it's taken some time to get there. I've got a buyer who's been here for 50 years, very well known in the community. She's got a really good show running. But if I were to open a new store tomorrow, I think that gift shop just takes time to build up that kind of a word of mouth, get that marketing out, and all that sort of line of thinking. But this natural, the supplement thing that we're doing here in Madison Park, I think that might be a way to go for the future for a lot of these stores. These are good margin items. These are people who are coming back every month to pick up those type of supplements, and bringing in those experts who are passionate about their product and know what they're talking about has definitely been successful. A lot of the vitamin and supplement stores, there's a couple big chains that some of you might know about, and the person working there might not really have much training at all. They might be mostly just hired recently into a cashier, might be the only person in that building, versus our customers. I know when they come in, they're gonna see Marianne, Kate, Laura. They're gonna learn all about Courtney, what's there, and they're gonna be able to see that person a month from now and say, hey, I got really good energy from this thing. I'm not sure is doing much formula, so that's okay. Why don't we look at something else instead?
Yeah. So it's funny, even within just like a supplement line, there's so many different areas that you could kind of focus and make yourself stand out. So tell me a little bit more about that. Are you doing like white label supplements? Are you doing concentrating on nutrient depletion? Or are you focusing on high-end recognizable brand names that are trusted? Or what's the kind of overall approach there?
Yeah. So Laura, being the old district manager of this company, she had a really good line on all these vendors, and she knows which ones are good partners, which ones are bad partners. We had a bad partner that would sell their product online for just about the same price we're selling to us on wholesale. So they're gone. But overall, I'd say currently we're still in our first year and a half here. You're getting in these big brands that Laura knew were selling well at the old store, bringing them back. She got rid of some that she didn't like or she knew didn't sell well. She brought in some more local items, maybe not in the supplement, but more like in the gift or the candles. So we got hyper local, we got Seattle, we got neighborhood local even, which we've been really proud of. In terms of drug nutrient depletion, huge opportunity, which I'm planning on exploring more in the next 3 months. I've got a really good fourth year student who's going to be coming in, and she's going to be looking with our pharmacists and our front end team to find some more opportunities, and really working on good handoffs for we're identifying these patients, and hey, we've got the experts on exactly what this drug could be depleting for you, and they can help you find that good product.
Awesome. Yeah. Let me know. Let's get together and build out some great care goals to help identify those patients.
All right.
So it sounds like everything has worked out pretty well in the first few years, which is great. I think you could probably, point to a few different things for that. One, obviously working with a great group like Cascadia, where you're going to have that group of experience to draw upon. I think part of it too, I was reading an article the other day about the resilience of millennials because of world events that have shaped our entire lives. And I'm like I'm like a geriatric millennial. I'm barely on the cusp there, but not quite Gen X, not quite millennial. But it has been constant uncertainty. And so since 2017, when you first embarked in the arena of, retail pharmacy, was really like when PBMs were starting to become more and more of an issue right before COVID hit. Of course, Seattle had quite a bit of, its own kind of civil unrest following that. It seems like there really hasn't been a calm in the storm since you've stepped into the scene. I think maybe part of that success may be the resilience of cutting your teeth in that kind of environment.
Yeah, I mean, every crisis has to be turned into an opportunity, especially in an industry like this. We've lost a lot of people to retirement. It's probably been one of the bigger challenges and also opportunities. We're losing a lot of really great baby boomer age people because especially during COVID, so many things are changing. If you're planning on retiring in 3 years anyway, why not just make it today? So it definitely created a bit of a leadership vacuum. But at the same time, it kind of gave an opportunity for some younger people to make their way and try and fail and have some room to fail. And so some of these things have kind of worked out. We've had a lot of these local chain pharmacies go out recently, and we've just been growing like no one's business. And every day is like a new challenge to how are we going to make our workflow better? Because in at least one of my stores, we're running out of room. I can't just keep adding computers and employees. So we need to use what we got better. But yeah, it's true for our generation and the generation below us. It's just been kind of a constant turmoil. And I know that some people see the generation below us and it's a totally different attitude towards work and that sort of thing. But when you think about all that they've been through, it makes sense. And when they go on the internet and they see, for example, just in our pharmacy industry, they see a pharmacist at a chain just on the ground crying because they don't have the staff to work with. And, the perception of our industry just gets a little bit worse for that whole generation. And sometimes it becomes more of a distrust of any sort of business. And here in this independent world, we really just got to push and show, that's not the reality when you work here. It's different. We have a totally different view. You're going to be able to get your ideas in, and we're gonna put some people around you so you can be successful. You're not going to be just used up and tossed out. It's a different situation, but it's like every time somebody in the generation below me starts looking at pharmacy, we kind of have to restart with some of these conversations. It's I appreciate you bringing up this generational thing because it's definitely been really relevant.
It's a big factor. Yeah. Yeah, it's a big factor. And, I don't think it's a bad thing. Every generation, has qualms with the next. That's part of it. If I like my kids' music, I'm like, maybe you're not doing it right. Maybe I shouldn't like your music. You should be pushing the envelope. You should be, carving your own path a little bit. So, You've told me a lot about successes in these pharmacies. What hasn't worked? Do you have any? Do you have anything that you tried and you thought would work and maybe it didn't because of that market, or maybe it was just it didn't make dollars, but even if you thought it made sense,
Yeah, there's been some things we've had to reprioritize. So we passed a pharmacist as providers bill while I was still in school at the UW. And I came out on my resume saying, I want to take advantage of this. I want to do a whole lot of medical billing at your pharmacy and that sort of thing. And that was one of the things I was hired on and kind of given some leash to do. And pretty quickly I was able to get contracts with just about all the private payers up here in our area. But the fact is we weren't able to find a good return on investment in doing this at that time back in 2017. We're 8 years later, and now we've got really good people at the center of our group who can look into this, focus on this, kind of roll it out better to our stores. I know Tyler on Vashon Island is just doing incredible with it, but I know that myself trying to navigate that back 2017, 2018, I hit a point where just this isn't paying off for me. I could probably be working on, getting some more vaccines in my store or getting some more marketing going. Just better uses of my time than I was able to find in that at the time. Though I am so hopeful for success moving forward in that field.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of times we have guests here and, we talk about the successes, which hopefully is very relatable to anybody listening, but, also reassessing and saying that didn't work. Let's try something else. And pivoting is important too. So I always like to find those if we can, because, that's part of moving forward is sometimes pivoting.
I'd say probably the single most successful thing that I did, it wasn't any game changer, but just I immediately came in and said, hey, we're 9 miles away from the University of Washington. Why are we not paying students to be here? And our old owner said, oh, I thought we were just too far. We weren't going to get them. And so just immediately kind of wrote up a one-pager why we need to have students here. I actually hired as our first student, her name is Amanda, somebody I knew very well, and just immediately having those extra, pharmacist brains in the building. Here in Washington, as they get into fourth year, we can have them check prescriptions. We can have them act, 99% as a pharmacist if there's somebody that we can trust. We still need to be in the building and nearby, but just bringing in that extra talent, giving them some of these projects that maybe are riskier. Like maybe there's a project that I'm not sure that this would be quite worth my time, but for a student, it might be. And even if it kind of breaks even for them, at least it's a learning experience and they're getting something extra out of it. And, they're just so eager to learn all these things and do these new things and kind of find their own way. And while you're as a pharmacist doing something that might be a little bit more of a sure thing. So since having that first student, I now got about 14 University of Washington students at my 3 stores. And honestly, it's besides how much good they bring my business, they've just been able to bring a lot to me personally. I just enjoying working with them and that kind of energy. And they sometimes keep me accountable. Maybe I've forgotten one of my guidelines, or I completely missed that this new asthma guideline came out a year ago. And we're using this generic Symbicort inhaler a lot different than we did when I was in school. So I would say out of everything I've done, finding a better way to get students in here and get them more often has probably been the single thing that's paid off the most for me.
Yeah, no, I love that. I was going to ask you about precepting because that's something that you guys definitely, take a lot of pride in, and I saw some Facebook posts and some LinkedIn posts about that. I love whenever I can, go to a trade show where there are a lot of students. I love talking to them and hearing what they're excited about, and it's just all over the spectrum. So, having that kind of, excitement and passion and just different point of view can definitely be nice to have.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the amount of impact I can make on the world is pretty limited. I still need to sleep. I've got other things that I need to take care of. But if I can make an impact on, 50 students in my career who go into 50 different industries, they don't all have to be people going into one of my stores or even community pharmacy. They might be going into insurance. They might be going into some kind of hospital situation. But having people with a better context of just everything we do can only benefit us in the long run. And I just find it so rewarding to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So those students joining your team obviously is something that has happened in the past, and you've had a lot of team members come from those existing pharmacies with kind of a different management and ownership structure where you're between 3 locations. It seems like having a really strong team is going to be just essential for your businesses to thrive. So how do you approach that with 3 pharmacies?
Culture is everything. Since I was sent to conferences when I first started working, just hearing about that culture, just hammering on culture. Todd, he once worked with Kelly Babcock, leadership growth formulas for her current organization, just kind of getting that kind of top to bottom. Here's how we would be better leaders. And I didn't work with him when he did this, but I was told he just total day and night flip in terms of his improvement as a leader. So myself and Sharina, we actually went a couple of years ago. You know, not to just straight up advertise for her as much as I love her, but just investing time in growing your leadership skills was definitely one of the best things I've done, and something I'd recommend to any owner as well as any manager. Just getting better at talking to people, understanding what people want, letting people speak and not feel that there's going to be some kind of retribution has been important. Meeting people's needs when you can, saying yes when you can, because sometimes you do have to say no, and you want to kind of limit when you do that. I've definitely had a lot of success with our profit sharing programs. So I know it's not for everybody, but I've valued being a really transparent owner. So every day at the end of the day, we'll run a profit report of our prescriptions completed, which kind of helps us see, oh, here's some really big losers. Here's some of our best stuff. We want to make sure we have, if there's going to be a stock issue, we're going to get ahead of that before the next refill's due, that sort of thing. And so we can kind of see how our store's doing. And when the store's making more money, my employees are going to make more money. And similarly, when I'm not there, I'm not telling somebody what to do. They know that if they're going to do actions that help our store make more money, they're going to get something at the end of the month. So you don't really need my presence to know that we're here, we have our jobs because the store is open and doing well. And when the store does really well, I can even get something a little bit extra. So just keeping people motivated, keeping people invested in the team goal, and giving them something when the store's doing better. These have all been really successful for me.
I love that, man. That definitely puts skin in the game. It gives a sense of ownership and participation and power over your own destiny to some degree, and just being. I love the idea that if you're working at some place that's doing great, you're benefiting directly.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell an employee to do something because it's your job, with the the implication you're fired if you don't. But I pretty much try to avoid that as much as I can. I'd rather say, hey, we're working quite a bit. We're all a little bit tired. We've been taking these walk-in flu and COVID shots for some time. But look, the store is doing better. We are making more money in September to December, and you're getting a pretty good chunk for it. Like, way to go, team. We were able to hit these goals we never hit before, and you're getting something. And just sharing how proud I am for hitting these team goals, which is not an act at all. I really am proud whenever we break last year's numbers. I've just found that to be really good for our team to keep going, because as we all know, it gets to be a bit of a slog once we hit this December, January time.
Yeah. No, and maybe that's one of those generational things as well. I think, that management style of tapping into the value system of your employees and team members, looking for more than necessarily just, wage as compensation, but satisfaction and meaning and purpose and participation being definitely as important, if not more important, sometimes when it comes to job satisfaction and engagement.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to spend 40 hours a week doing something. I want each and every one of my employees to enjoy that time. We try to make a fun place to work, a place that you value coming into work and you're not just miserable and punching in and punching out. And, those people do sometimes end up getting hired, and then they either kind of get on board with realizing that, hey, work doesn't have to suck, or they end up moving on because maybe they see another job ad that'll get them. And, at that point, it's kind of a good riddance situation.
Yeah. So within your team, especially with you not being behind the bench every day in one pharmacy where, you're managing 3 pharmacies, there has to be quite a bit of delegation. How do you supply your team with, the autonomy they need to make those decisions and to keep that business running and stay engaged and make sure that they're going to be interested in growing into their role for years to come?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I said I do meet with my managers weekly. ultimately the manager's autonomy and making sure that they're within their sense of ethics is always going to be paramount. I'm never going to override them if something that seems wrong or seems like something against the culture that we built for all these years. So, starting there, but really in a perfect world, quarterly 5-minute meetings with everybody, not the performance reviews. These are shown to not actually deliver the results that anybody wants them to deliver, but just sitting down and asking the questions. What are you currently focusing on? What can I do to support you? I'm definitely doing this yearly, but I would like to bump it up. I've got about 70 employees between these 3 stores, but really, if you do the math, that's not that much time to kind of see where everybody is. Most of my employees, they want new projects. They want something new to be delegated to them. A new chance to kind of find something interesting, because no matter who you are, doing the same thing every day gets boring. So getting that opportunity to maybe kind of work on a new project and develop in a new way, that's something that I'd say 90% of my employees have been interested in. So I try to make sure my pharmacists are doing some things that use their skill sets. I'm always trying to find that marriage of their skills and their passions. So when we can find that, that's when we can really succeed and innovate and do new things. If I'm going to employ 15 pharmacists, hopefully some of them can do some unique things. And then we have these students who, as I said, have a lot of energy, and they're still kind of finding what am I good at? What do I enjoy to do? So they might be open to just about everything. And there might be some things that, as I said, are kind of boring to pharmacists now, but those students just love that opportunity. And then our techs, and we have a lot of assistants as well. There's so many opportunities to get people doing some new things. Some of our assistants who've been around for a couple of years, they might start being interested in being trained as technicians, which is a program that I have at all 3 of my stores. So that's, more room for growth. Our technicians learning how to vaccinate, our students learning how to be pharmacists, just everybody kind of looking at how can I personally grow. And as long as we have that mindset, we've been doing all right.
Nice. Yeah, I love that, man. I just love, to hear when people are excited about what they do and they're excited to go in, and having a team that's that engaged, it really does create a different atmosphere, and everybody can pick up on that. We've all been somewhere where, the person we were dealing with was just going through the motions.
Yeah, I explain to every employee when I'm interviewing them, we are this business. We are the face of this business. All my assistants, you're not a cashier. You're the face of the business. When people are reviewing us on Google, they might see our pharmacists every other month or so, but they're seeing my number one assistant twice a month, and just everybody having that buy-in and knowing that their actions reflect on our business. And it's a lot more fun to work for a beloved business than one that's hated. These things have definitely paid off for us.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about if I'm a technician at one of your pharmacies, what do my customer interactions look like? Am I, communicating on more of a, MedSync kind of centered communication schedule? Do you have a lot of walk-ins? Are you doing a lot of, appointment-based model immunizations, or, what does a great patient interaction look like? Well,
I'd say for starters, I generally try to have an assistant talk to the patient before the tech. The techs here in Washington, they have a little bit more schooling to do, and a lot of them are really good behind the counter dealing with insurance, that sort of thing. My assistants, I try to get those really extroverted people, those really bubbly, friendly people. And so as much as I can, I want them to be the first line. But assistant or tech, in terms of great patient interaction, just knowing the patients is definitely a big thing. And I know every single person listening to this can relate to that. If Mr. Johnson's, you're getting ready to pull his stuff as soon as you see him walk in that door, like that goes such a long way. It makes people really feel safe that this pharmacy knows me. They're not going to let, some bad drug interaction get by, because I've been coming here forever, and I've had many good conversations with this entire team. There's Liz. She was one of the first people I told when my daughter gave birth. Just that personal knowing is probably the single most important thing. when people think of our employees as people, not as somebody in the way, when they think of us as co-problem solvers, we're going to help you get through this. Even if we're telling you no, we're gonna find you somebody who can say yes. I just find that goes a long way. Our industry, unfortunately, there are some difficult patient interactions sometimes, but just by kind of leveling and working with the patient and not keeping this this formality and this policy says no, and just ending the conversation right there, we've done pretty well.
Yeah, very cool. So now that you are a couple years in, you've got 3 stores rolling along, and enjoying some time precepting. It looks like you've also stepped into some other realms. Definitely a bit of a role with advocacy. What do you see 2025, 2026, 2027? Any plans? What do you see down the road?
Yeah, I'd say for the past year, advocacy has been a really big push for me. When I was a student, I went to multiple state legislative days. I really enjoyed that, getting to meet with our representatives and kind of talk to them about what pharmacy is. Back in 2016, none of them knew what a PBM was. I barely knew what a PBM was as a student. So it's kind of on us to explain to our employees and our families and communities what a PBM is, but we've come such a long way in that front. I went to a legislative day a year or so after I graduated, and I believe I was one of 2 pharmacists that day. So I was thinking, this is more of a student game right now. And so I didn't go back for a few years, but this year I've said, it's our entire industry is benefiting from what these students are doing when they go down to our state capital and they advocate on behalf of us. There's about 9,000 pharmacists in Washington. Every single one of us owes a debt to the students who are going in and doing this. And so this year, I just went a couple days ago. There was about 10 pharmacists and about 90 students just for the University of Washington. We met with about a third of all of our representatives. This time, our push was more about scope, that prescribing a little bit more independently rather than PBMs. But it was just great. And through the past couple of years, really at Jeff's pushing, I've gotten more involved in NCPA. So it's meeting all these owners, 50 states, 50 sets of rules. Sometimes you'll see somebody ask a question on one of these Facebook groups about, can I legally do this? And I don't know the Kentucky law. Every one of us is in a totally different ecosystem. But at least on this state legislative steering committee, we can kind of communicate, here's what's working in Tennessee, here's what's working in Arkansas. Here's a court case that we should probably pay attention to, what the implications are going to be for all of us. I've had a lot of success getting the insurance commissioner to do this by kind of working in this way. So working with NCPA to kind of learn about how we can make a better situation here. We know that we're trying to do some things federally. We came real close in December, so hopefully we'll get something that is good for our industry in the next couple of months before we lose another 1,000 pharmacies or so. But ultimately, everybody who has a pharmacy, not everybody can step out of their pharmacy and go do these advocacy things. I completely understand that. A lot of us we just need to be there. We just can't get away for multiple days to do this. But if you have a store where you have the privilege that you're able to get out and advocate, you got like NCPA fly-in, and there's many other opportunities to get out and do some things that should have been done 15 years ago, but we don't have a time machine, so let's go out and try to get it done now.
Yeah. Well, a couple notes. Not everybody can fly out. Everybody can send a letter. Everybody can click on that post from NCPA where you can, automate the message delivery to your representatives. And another thing that you said that is actually kind of uplifting. It seems like a silver lining. You were at your advocacy event and you were focused on something other than PBMs. You're able to talk about something affecting your business other than PBMs because there has been such a wave of information that everybody knows what PBMs are. Everybody knows it needs to be fixed, and I think it took years to get there, but we're right there on the cusp. It's hard to tune into anything political without seeing that addressed. So that's great news. Again, just to hear that you're able to talk about other issues affecting your profession is good news to me. So maybe I'm optimistic, but
Yeah, we had a really good bill pass in last year's session that will take place on January 1st of 2026 with PBMs regarding steering and confusing language and even sending specialty drugs to their own pharmacies. So there's some really good language in it. And I'm really excited to see how that ends up playing out next year. But because, thanks legislative team for this big win. We're going to give you a break on this topic, and we're going to talk about something else for once.
Yeah, man, I've thought about that so many times over the past few years. All of that energy that could be focused towards patient care and growing businesses, instead just focused on this clear issue that needs addressed. It really is a shame that so many resources have had to go into, correcting some of these issues. But alas, here we are.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is I know of a store in the area that had such a bad payer mix. We all know that some payers pay better than others, and this particular store just happened to have a lot of members of this particular union that just kept paying underwater, and we lost a local pharmacy because of this oversaturation of a bad payer. And so what happens is these people might go to another independent pharmacy and unfortunately just recreate the problem. It's a very sad situation that some of these groups are okay with just getting these pharmacies closed down because they can't pay a reasonable rate. And I know we don't have all day, so I won't talk about what's going on with TRICARE's reimbursement right now. But it's just been shameful seeing, our veterans, the people who deserve healthcare more than anybody, and all these pharmacies can no longer do business with them because unfortunately we're just not able to sustain business with what we've seen. It's horribly sad.
Yeah, I noticed you had a posting on the front of the Ostrom's website there with Medicare plans no longer accepted and plans still accepted. It's such a shame that that should a patient's payer should be a barrier to care.
Yeah, people literally don't understand this concept of, well, my insurance covered it. Did they? What other industry just regularly accepts a quarter of their projects being underwater? I don't think a guy's going to take care of my roof if I offer him 75% of the cost of his materials, let alone the labor.
I seriously doubt it. And then try to claw it back a month later.
And then I'm going to audit his roof job later. Get that underpaid money back.
So to brighter skies, where do you see yourself in a couple of years here? Kind of winding down on time here. Do you see yourself expanding to more locations? Do you see yourself, maybe focusing on those existing initiatives and passion projects like precepting and advocacy?
Yeah, I kind of see myself as having some sort of store limit. I think the Jeff's strength is his biggest innovation is this idea of partnering with people locally and letting them kind of run the show. So if I were to get to the point where I can't really give a store any time, then I'm probably not doing right by it. I don't know what that number is. I haven't reached it yet, but I do want to be aware that there's got to be a limit of being able to, give my all. In terms of advocacy, it's definitely been a growth area in the past year or two. I've really enjoyed it, and there's way more opportunities, and we need more people who are willing to give time. Precepting is something that has been kind of keeping me on the bench at Ostrom. So I do still work as a pharmacist about 3 days a week, and that's a major reason. I just want to work with these students side by side, and as well as seeing all the things that are facing us, because if I'm not having any bench time, I'm just not going to really be aware of. If you're not aware of the problems, you don't know how to fix them. So by being in there at least a couple times a week, I'm at least able to see what's coming down. And, if it's a problem at the store that I'm currently a pharmacist in, it's probably a problem in the other stores. So there's definitely still some benefit of me working there as a bench pharmacist.
Oh, for
But
sure. Yeah.
at the same time, I know there's a certain point of store growth where it might become incredibly limited. I might just have to balance what's good for my businesses and my teams and what's good for me as a person.
All right. Well, I know you've got a lot going on there with 3 stores. We're right here at the cutoff time here. I did want to thank you so much for joining. I know you've got a lot going on up there. Thanks to your team for backing you up, and thanks to the Cascadia Pharmacy Group and Jeff Earl specifically for really working every day for independent pharmacies out there, and now through NCPA. So, what a great team you've got behind you, man.
I put them up against anybody. I promoted my main assistant from best in the state to best in the country. So if anybody has a contender, I'd love to hear about it. But I just can't say enough about it. It's really fun just coming into these groups of people who just really enjoy coming into work every day, solving problems and achieving new highs. So that's probably my favorite thing of this year.
Love it. Well, keep in touch, man. And as always, let me know if there's anything we can do here on the Pioneer or Red Sail side to help you out.
Thanks, Will. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you guys have always been responsive, and we have a new thing that we've managed to break and can use your help on unbreaking. So really appreciate you inviting me out here on this podcast.